Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Yacc, yet another Crowcast where I pick a game, I play it for a week, and then I'll talk about it. This week's game is Silent Hill 2 for the PC. It was released in 2003, developed by Team Silent and published by Konami, and also there'll be spoilers up ahead, just so you know, but first a little backstory. I picked this game up a long time ago at a store that doesn't exist anymore, they just discontinued. And this game was, on the shelves. I never known about the Silent Hill series until the second game, so that's how I got it, and that's the game I will be playing this week. Something really creepy happened 2 weeks ago. The Silent Hill soundtrack was recommended to me on Spotify, and I got nostalgic, so I went into my closet because I knew I had this game, so I dug up my old copy. The box was all banged up, but it contained all the 3 CDs, so I was like, maybe it will run on my current PC, and I installed the thing. I had a little problem with the launcher making it work, but the game ran like butter, and I think that was creepy enough, but just waiting to the good part, I guess. So the next morning I was sitting at work, having my coffee and going through Discord and the feeds, and 7 hours ago, timestamped, and this is why it's creepy, the trailer for Silent Hill Remake dropped. So when I was installing the game / starting playing it, they released the trailer. I was like, what the hell, that's creepy. Maybe the soundtrack was recommended on Spotify just because there will be a remake of the game and whatnot, but I still found that very creepy. It was like if the game was meant to be played, I guess. So the game starts you out at the rest stop. You are James Sunderland, and it's kind of weird, but he has gotten a letter from his dead wife. She passed away 3 years ago from a sickness, or so we are to believe. And he's going to Silent Hill to check this out because there's no way that his wife is, riding from beyond the grave. So James is at this rest stop, and there's like a cutscene playing of him in front of a mirror. And there's something about the Silent Hill series and bathrooms, and I think you know about this already, but there's like a theme with save rooms and crawlways and holes and stuff, but I will not get into that. So anyway, James is carrying a letter from his deceased wife in his pocket, and I think he even has like a photo on his person. So he leaves the restroom and he grabs a map from a car that's just standing on the parking lot. I think it's his car. I have no idea, but the road is blocked up ahead, so he has to walk down this foggy road and into Silent Hill. So this pathway is very long and it's downhill, and it leads down to like a river area and a well. So James looks down the well and he sees like a red paper or something red. And via red objects is how you save in this game. So this is when I realized that my copy was cursed right out the bat. It ran like butter, everything works fine, unpatched, but you can't save. Or rather you can save, but you can't restore a save file. So I couldn't beat this game this week because I couldn't save, but everything else was going fine, so I kept on playing it for as long as I could. So James walks on a bit and he finds himself in a graveyard, and he also finds this girl called Angela, and he actually spooks her. So there's something obviously wrong with Angela. She's looking for her mom, but something is not quite right. And James tells her that he is looking for his wife, Mary, or someone special. I mean, he's not going to help her. He has his own problems, but, that's how they leave off, I guess. James continues on. And there's like a theory that I have. I mean, the internet is full of theories, right? But everyone that visits Silent Hill has some kind of business with it. Something has happened to them, some traumatic, and they're drawn to this city. So everyone experienced this town a bit different. So James, for instance, later in the game, he starts to see monsters and stuff. And there's this other guy, I think he's called Eddie. He sees monster, but not in the same way as James does. And Angela is just weird also, I don't know. So there's something about this town, and we will get into it later on in the story, I guess. So James continues on, and he finds himself in Silent Hill Ranch. And this game is very foggy, so you can't see very far. And I heard like this weird ambient water sounds. And I also heard like a chainsaw. And up to this point, you haven't really seen or, encountered a lot of people at all, just for like Angela. So I just followed the sound and I found like a bunch of logs and a running chainsaw. And I was like, who leaves a, a running chainsaw in the middle of nowhere? Yeah. So James picks it up, So I played on the easy difficulty, just to clarify. And I think this item is only spawnable in this area at easy difficulty. And I don't know why, but the chainsaw is really clunky. So it's not a very good beginner-friendly weapon. We have this weird kind of thing where you actually have to hold a bunch of buttons to, you have to like put yourself in a stance and then push like a button to do the attack, and the chainsaw is not obviously slow. It's obviously slow, I mean. So anyway, James continues on. So James goes down this road that leads into Silent Hill, and it's really creepy, and the ambient of water sounded like it was fleshy, if that makes sense. I made some notes about it. And you enter town, it's all foggy, and there's like a flower shop. So every time when you go to a place or a door or you check if it's open, the map kind of fills in with a red marker if it's like a passable object or if it's locked or if a road just is blocked outright. So it's very convenient, so you know which rooms you've been into, what you picked up, and it also marks saves with like a red square. So I started exploring the town and I found out that James is looking at objects that he can pick up, like ammo or health drinks or medkits and whatnot. So they're not easy to see in the fog, but James apparently has good vision. He can see those stuff, so yeah. So then all of a sudden there was this bloody trail in the middle of the street, and I followed it. I think I saw like a monster in the fog as well, but it was like not a clear indication. I think it's meant to like build up suspense. So I followed the trail of blood and I found this fenced in area where you can save, but obviously I couldn't save, so I continue on, and I ended up at a dead end where they play like a cutscene, and there James picks up a radio. So this radio is a mechanic in the game where if enemies are close, the radio just start buzzing like all crazy with all kinds of weird sounds coming out of it. So what happens is you pick up a 2x4 and a monster attacks you. So this is how you learn like the controls and how to fight. So you hold F to aim, and then you press the spacebar to attack. And yeah, I mean, as I said, it's a bit clunky, but it gets the job done. So after that encounter, I went down to Nathan Avenue, and I went down the road, and the road was just gone. So I thought this was kind of cool because like a big hole where the road is supposed to be. And I've listened to a lot of SCPs about weird towns and stuff, and it's just, the town just were cut off. And I love the concept because that's creepy. Like there's no like, how did this happen? Like it's just cut right off. You can't walk this way, so you better just go around, I guess. So I explored some more, and I found this dead guy in an alley, and he had like an apartment key on him. So it has like the address. So once you actually look at an item, like and examine it in your inventory, it pops up on your map. So I think just press M, you see everything on the map. So it says like, go to this apartment place, like a red square around the thing. So I went there basically. So at this point I got jump scared. There's like this minivan, and there's this monster that crawled out and started screaming and screeching. So the monsters in this game, and I forgot to talk about it, but they are like all weird and fleshy and black, and you don't even know what you're looking at. So these monsters that I encountered on the van, or this monster I should say, it looks like it has like a straitjacket on, or it has no hands, so it just walks around. But if you beat it a couple of times while standing, it starts to crawl on, or like using the legs for propulsion. It's really creepy. And there are also these kind of weird mechanical, what do you call it, mannequin with like 2 legs instead of arms, and like 4 legs I should say. Then really creepy and weird. And I think that this is also a theory, but James has some frustration, like sexual frustration, and it kind of, these enemies are kind of weird, and they kind of somehow represent this. And even in the upcoming parts of the game, which is towards the end, there is this fleshy room with pistons going in and out of the walls, and I don't need to like clarify what that means. So there's definitely some tension in his life, or something weird about him, a lot of frustration, because everybody experienced Silent Hill differently, as I said before. So this part coming up is actually, it took a long time to actually go through this. So James enters this apartment complex, and just as he enters the hallway, there's like this map of like a schematic of the whole place, and he picks it up. So you go through room by room, and you find ammunition and enemies and whatnot, and you eventually come across the flashlight. So the flashlight is actually mounted on like a mannequin stance But the creepy thing about it is that it's like Mary's blouse is on it. So I think even James remarks on this. So you pick up the flashlight, and this is one of the more brilliant things. So you can't really use the map if you don't have the flashlight on because you can't see. And I was like, okay, so like I have to turn the flashlight on and off at some point. And there was also this mechanic which was kind of interesting. The monsters won't not see you directly if you have the flashlight turned off. So there's this mechanic where you can't see, but the enemies can't see you also. So I did some more exploring, and this whole part is about collecting like coins and keys to get into different rooms and progress the story. So you try to grab this key, right? And there's like between a couple of bars, and there's this girl, I think she's called Laura. I think, yeah, this little kid, and you try to reach for the key, but she just, kicks it or takes it from you and runs off. And, well, just like mean kids do, I guess. And then some more exploring, and I found a gun, and this really weird thing. You encounter this more or less invincible enemy called Pyramid Head. So this is the iconic villain or enemy of the game. He has a black triangle for a head, like a huge triangle, and he has like a butcher apron and a huge sword or like knife that he drags around. So the first time you encounter this bad boy, he's actually trying to, I think he's had sex with like one of those weird monsters, or you don't really know, but yeah, really weird. So you hide in like a closet and you aim the gun for him and you start shooting, and eventually he will just back off. Really weird. And I also forgot, but this is a funny story. So I was unemployed and I was at home at my mom's place, and I was playing Silent Hill 2 on my old laptop, and I got the brilliant idea to bring it onto the big screen like the family TV. So I have these video cables, and I hooked it up. I'm a bit of a tech savvy guy, so I made it run. And my younger sister was like, "Can I watch when you play?" And she was like 5 or 6 or something at the time, I guess. And I also remember that my other sister's boyfriend was watching me play. And I totally forgot about this sequence with Pyramid Head doing his thing with the monster. And my sister's boyfriend, he just laughed when my younger sister said, what are the monsters doing? And I was like, oh no. Like one of those weird moments. And, it's not that graphical, but, for like a young girl to, I don't know, I'm mostly ashamed of it, but if I probably bring it up today, she'd probably laugh about it because, we're all adults now, I guess. So to progress in the game, you need to figure out a puzzle. So at the beginning of every game, you can select the combat or action like difficulty and also the level of puzzles. So you need to figure out how to set the clock. So basically, I think the names of the kids, there's like a kids naming convention, and the letters that mark their name is actually the first letter of that kind of indicator of time, if that makes sense. So you have second, minutes, and hours. And if you do that correctly, the clock will kind of click. And I think the puzzle is written on walls or on poems and notes that you find out throughout the complex. But when it clicks, you can actually move the clock aside and you can progress. And eventually you will run into this other guy called Eddie. And this is one of the more brilliant kind of introduction. You just hear this barfing sound like someone is puking, and you go into like a toilet area, and a cutscene plays of him, Eddie, just puking his guts out in the toilet. And James is like casually talking to him, what are you doing here, and what is going on, and have you seen any monsters? And he just talks to Eddie while he's barfing and puking. It was like, okay. But he seems not to be bothered about this, and basically they part ways, and they basically said, like, take care. You will run into this character later in a much more of a worse scene. I will not spoil it, but most of the characters actually turn out for the bad, on the bad side, if that makes sense. And at some point, I think you cross over to another apartment complex via like a window. And you also encounter like the Angela again, and this scene is kind of creepy. She's lying in front of like a big wall mirror. She's having a knife, and you have this conversation with her, but she seems to have a split personality or something. And the conversation is like, she turns this very aggressive, and then she calms down and acts more confused. And then James says like, hey, I'm gonna take that knife so you don't hurt anybody or yourself. And then he basically leaves. So this is one of the bad endings that you can get. If you examine the knife a couple of times, you get a really bad ending. You can get a bad ending. I'll talk about it in the Easter egg secrets and glitches part, I guess. There's also this puzzle where you need to collect a bunch of coins and put them in the right slot. And there's like a poem as well that describes on where you're supposed to put the sequence of coins, if that makes sense. You get some extra goodies if you manage to crack that puzzle up. So after some more key collection and exploring, you run into Pyramid Head again. And this is kind of a weird area. You're supposed to go down a flight of stairs, but it's flooded with water. And I don't know how this nightmare logic works, but you can't go down there. So you have to like avoid him, his big knife, and shoot at him until like a siren blares, and then he walks down the stairs through the water and everything. So yeah, and then the staircase kind of drains and you can go down by yourself, like down into the entryway. So I finally got outside from this apartment complex, and I ran into that girl from before, the little kid that kicked my hand, I guess, or James's hand. And she is sitting on like on a wall, and she basically just mocks James for some reason, like a really bad kid, talking about Mary or Maria. And I don't know how she knows about that, but she knows. But anyway, she runs off, and James is finally on his way to Rosewater Park. So at the beginning of the game, James reads a letter that was sent from Mary, right? And she talks about their special place. So the problem with this is that they have a lot of special places in Silent Hill that they went through when she was alive, I guess. So James figures that one of those special places has to be Rosewater Park. So he goes there and he finds Maria, not Mary, but Maria is actually looking very much like Mary when she was alive, and there's this weird tension because she knows about Mary as well. Somehow, I don't know, maybe Silent Hill is playing tricks on him as well. So James figures that the special place might be a hotel. So him and Maria tag along together and go down, start heading for the hotel. And that's where I'll stop talking about the game because I don't want to spoil anything more about it at this point. So gameplay. Follow along on James Sunderland's journey through Silent Hill and find out the truth in the end. Control. The arrow keys moves James around, and it's a bit like tank controls. I is for inventory, and you can cycle through items and examine them and use them and whatnot. Shift is your guard, but if you hold like the shift key and the arrow keys, Sunderland runs. And the S button will rotate the camera behind James's so you can see more what's going on. Sometimes the camera is fixed, sometimes you can't move it, but mostly it works like a way you can rotate the camera. It's useful in like hallways because if the camera is in front of you, you don't really know what you're facing, but you can hold the S button and just walk and the camera rotates. The M button brings up the map and it crosses off with like a red marker from places where you visited and been and doors that are closed and open, and also, as I said before, show like save areas if you've been there or not. The spacebar interacts and does a couple of action things. The escape button brings up the main menu and options, and that's about it. Graphics. So the game is a bit grayish looking, but it fits the tone of Silent Hill, and most of the town is covered in fog anyway, so you can't see that much. So later in the game, walls start to turn fleshy and everything becomes, weird and run down. And it's just an aesthetic choice that I like, and it fits the game perfectly because it's creepy and you don't really know what's going on at certain points of the game. Creepy and ambient, and it sets the tone perfectly. Sound and music. Akira Yanaka made the soundtrack for this game, and it's awesome. It has guitars, it has piano pieces, and it has weird ambient tracks. And I've been listening for like 3 weeks now, and I listen to it while I'm working. So you have these kind of bangers like late 90s, early 2000 rock kind of grunge tracks, and all of a sudden this creepy music pops in to like put you on edge. And it was really hard to actually choose a track to have at the beginning of this episode, but I think I picked a good one because it like sets the tone for this weird kind of thing that I like. So if you haven't noticed, I really like this game at this point. Easter eggs, secrets, and glitches. So this game has 4 endings that I knew of, but apparently it has 6. So one of the endings is the dog ending, and to get this ending you need to go into a dog house and find a bone, and the bone is actually called like a dog key or something. So at the end of the game at Lakeview Hotel, there is this locked door that you can unlock with the dog key, and if you do so you will find a dog. I think it's one of the developers' dog. He's sitting in front of this huge control panel and pulling switches and whatnot, and James just says like, "It was you all along." And then it cuts to a fake out credit scene where all like the instrument has been replaced with dog barks and stuff, and you know, it has this montage of all the like crazy stuff that happens in the game. It's cut into like a footage while the credit screen rolls. So there's this other ending which I like to call the knife ending. I know it's not called that, but if you examine Angela's knife, it increases the chance of you getting in the water ending, which is one of the badder endings, I guess. But yeah, and there's some weird things that can happen. You can either choose to like stay in Silent Hill or leave. So there will be like a different ending. You can leave with Marie and leave the memory of Maria behind, I guess, or Marie. I get them confused. So you leave the memory of your dead wife behind to be with this other woman that you found in Silent Hill, if that makes sense. In conclusion, I wrote, yes, play it. It's a perfect Halloween game. So I really like this game. If you couldn't tell, it's one of the better games in the series, and the first one that I actually played, and I didn't know anything about this game until I picked it up at that discontinued store. The only bad thing about this game was that somehow I couldn't save it, so I couldn't get that much gameplay out of it. That's the only negative side. So I played a fair amount of this game to know what's happened, and I mean, it's just a perfect game, like atmospherically, and the music is great, and it sets the tone for Halloween perfectly, because there's something about that psychological fear, I guess, walking into like a foggy town and you being all alone, and you see something in the distance, you don't really know what it is, but you get closer, and you know, of course it's a monster. So this game is a good Halloween game, a game that I would like to revisit, probably some other ways though, like the PC. Maybe I can dig up like a PS2 copy or something, because that will actually save and run better, I guess. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.